Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Brian Thatcher, and welcome to Mercy Unbound. It's a show that aims to provide hope and avenue for healing, and one that will help you understand and then live the great mercy of God. With me today, I have Nermine Rubin. She's a friend. She lives in the Tampa Bay area. Had her on before, and we're going to go in more detail on her incredible ministry called Water4Mercy. The website is water4mercy.org. She grew up in Egypt. She's founder of the Ministry, uh, and is doing incredible things in several African countries, drilling solar-powered wells, innovative agriculture technology to farm and produce the most maximal crops they have with the land. Animal husbandry. She's trying to improve the lives of the poorest of the poor. She works with worldwide Israeli known experts and working together for this AITeC. She's going to get into detail of that. That's her Technology and Agriculture Innovation Centers. She's also written a book we're going to talk about at the end of the show, The Most Wonderful Rain, with the story of Deborah, a beautiful story. We've got a couple videos today as well. I hope you go to her website. Hope you can help support her. Uh, she can't do it alone. Nermine is got the energy of five people. She works so hard on this, and she's achieving incredible results all through the mercy of God. So welcome back to Mercy Unbound, Nermine.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back, Brian. It's great to see you again.
You know, you've got this project that seems to just get better and better, and it's amazing what you've been able to accomplish. But how did you get started in all this?
Truly, it all comes back to the heart. And I love that you have the divine mercy in the heart and that spark behind you. And that spark is so important because through Mama Mary, through my Marian consecration, God touched my heart and just inflamed my spark in me, where I just saw my daughter asked me to come and volunteer with her in Tanzania at the time, and what I saw haunted me. It just haunted me, and somehow God touched my heart in a way that I just did. Every day I went to adoration. Every day I would research. I have 2 master's degree, one in business and one in health science. So I was very troubled in what I saw, and I was trying to figure out what can I do. But again, I knew God is God and I am not. So I prayed every day. And then truly, I love to say, God does not call the equipped, he equips the called. And Brian, when I humbled myself to say, look, this is not my expertise. Everybody says I've got to do water. It starts with water. Help me, help me. And wow, I learned that the world leading organizations that are the best stewards of water, and not just the best, the ultimate, I mean, bar none, are from Israel. Again, they have technology and desalinization and solar energy and agriculture. They know how to grow in desert conditions. So when I learned about the technology, I'm like, wow, God equipped me with them. And, and as the progression came, I started with water because, again, we will all die without water, right? It all starts with water, but you cannot stop at water. If you stop at water, you'll always be subsistence, because what I saw is when we were bringing water, the people loved it. They finally had water. They finally could grow crops, but what we saw is what they were eating was just enough to fill their bellies, but not enough to feed their brains. So when you look at the high childhood stunting rate, the malnutrition, the anemia, all that stuff is like 25 to 35% in a lot of these countries that we work on, because wow, we bring water. A number of noble organizations bring water. God bless them. People aren't dying from waterborne diseases. They're not dying of thirst. However, you have to be a good steward of the water. So now I also work with Hebrew University and Cultivate, which they are the best in terms of growing seeds. So now with that tiny little bit of water with the technology, drip irrigation, now that tomato plant, instead of yielding 20 tomatoes, it can yield 150 tomatoes. So you don't have to do the math. You don't have to have the MBA to do the math to see that the green, coming back to the heart, the green that the water brings is not just for hope, it's for food, but it's also for money. So really it was God that touched my heart. And when I saw it started with water, but my brain is wired as an MBA, I used my skills to say, water is excellent, but water is the means for feeding the brain so that you could eat the rainbow, you know, you eat all the different colors of the produce as well as, you know, animals and so forth, but also green is hope, and green in the United States is money. And I'm telling you, money is good when it is used for good. And if you see, our mission is upholding human dignity, because it hurt my heart. I am African, and being from Africa and seeing God's people, the human dignity of having someone to beg or to walk for hours and hours for water that is not even fit for consumption. God touched my heart in such a way that he inflamed me, that I was on fire and I was determined to figure it out. And he opened the doors when I prayed. So sorry, that was a very long answer,
that's,
Brian.
no, we need to know the story of how this all got started. And um, what was your very first project? Was that in Tanzania?
Yes. Yes, it was actually Mwini Village. It was the first one. I jumped in. I was in the process of, I needed a new car at the time, I'm being honest, and I was saving money to get a car. And then when God touched my heart, and then I realized how much it was going to cost. At the time, it was 50,000 US dollars. Now it's 65,000 for a solar powered, remotely monitored system that is sustainable for the villagers to get clean water that they have ownership in, that they don't. So the very first one was Mwini Village. And I didn't have enough money. I'm being honest. I'd saved. So I thought, okay, I'm saving money for this car. I had 35,000. I'd mentioned it to my parents and they're like, we're going to kick in the rest. So that was our very first project. My daughter was involved. And I have to say, when we were vetting them, they were the poorest of, like, they were the one in most need. And how they touched me when I went to visit them, I'll never forget the picture of all of these women that had been there all day. I have the picture of like the sun setting and you could see their shadows. They had been standing and waiting all day. And the way it is, there are big holes down. And all I can say is, like, you know, when you dig a hole and you're waiting for the water to pool up, okay, till you could scoop the water. So not only do they walk for 3-4 hours, they have to wait in a queue so that each person can get 2 buckets, usually 2 buckets. You can see some of the pictures behind me, 2 buckets, okay? But they have to wait for this water to pool up so that they can gather the buckets. So this is a long process. So there was like 8 or 9 women from Weenie Village who had walked to this, been there all day. And as the sun was setting, we came and we met with them, and through the translator, we'd heard that they'd been there all day. And now, because it's sunsetting, they needed to walk back before it got too dark, and no one had water. And I was talking to a woman and she's having a baby, suckling her breast. And I'm like, what are you going to do? And she goes, well, hopefully there'll be water tomorrow. Oh, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps just remembering this. Okay. And Brian, this is how God touched my heart, to show how God touches your heart and how he needs to touch your heart. Okay. I love my pictures. Okay. I love pictures. Okay. It's my memories. Okay. So through the translator, I'm like, do you mind? I would love a picture of all of these women. Can you ask them if it's okay for me to get them in front of the water hole? So my, Lyrian, our staff on the ground is speaking Swahili and is asking them. And as they were all gathering, I see a woman like turn around and like bolt and go a little bit and kind of like say, wait, wait, wait. And then she was doing this. And then I realized she was wanting us to wait for her to clean the dirt off her face because she wanted to look pretty for the picture. Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry. Okay. I like to look pretty as a picture. I'm telling you, and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, she's trying to look pretty I want to look pretty. Oh my gosh, that baby that she's got on her back. She wants the best for that child, just like I want for my kid. She's just like me, even though she looks weird with her hair, her dress, I mean, they don't look like us in terms of what we're used to Western, our dress, our clothing, and the manner. But that kind of touched me to the core, the vanity part of it. God forgive me for the vanity. But that's when I'm like, you know what? Oh my gosh. And then that's when we decided to give Weenie. And I am proud to say they are one of my successful projects. We actually have the bunch of, I'll show you, we have a bunch of produce there. What I learned is that everyone owns land in Africa. Okay. So in our villages, once we bring in the technology to show them how to grow seeds and food with the nutrients for the seeds and the soil, with the drip irrigation, with the tiny fertigation nutrients within the drip area. When we show them this, they take it to their land and then they're able to make money. So when we came back, these guys are now motivated. The men work now. The women can be moms and or parents and part of the family and help their kids who now go to school instead of walking with water, and they could help them with homework. But the beauty is that now it's like it's a means they have that dignity. They're proud. They're like, look at the house I built. Look at this. These guys get up at 5 a.m. Why? Because they work. Why? Because they're making green. They're feeding their families. They've got dignity. They're making money. They're investing it back into their families. This is what we're doing. And this to me is what's beautiful. So there is a baby in Weenie that is named Nermine. Please pray for baby Nermine. She is now 3.5 years old. Wow. Okay. So when we were there, she was in utero, the very first baby that had clean water, that the mom had clean water, drinking clean water when she was still pregnant with her. So when this first baby was born, after they had the clean water, they named her baby Nermine. My very first village, our very first village. Wow. And look at how God, amazing.
So you've got one aspect of the wells, solar powered wells, and you've got would we think of it as hydroponic farming?
No, not hydroponic. Hydroponic is with air. No. We use the soil. And let me tell you, the soil in Africa is amazing. And this is what's beautiful, because we're using technology from Israel and they're used to sand. They're used to yucky. So we're actually blowing the yield. Okay. Like I remember when I first went to Hebrew University and I was looking at the data before I went outside to see it in life. I was looking at the data. I'm like, I think you guys have your decimals wrong. And they're like, no, we don't. I'm like, there is no way you have 18 times the yield in a tomato. No way. It's 1.8. And they're like, oh, no. Come and see. And I'm like, wow. Okay. So in Tanzania and in actually Kenya, our agriculture, the soil there is more fertile. So our yields are like 25 or 35. So the farmers like to learn this. And that's why we established with the Salesians, okay, at Don Bosco, they are the best educator. Again, God equipped me with the world-renowned what? We've got the world-renowned technology, and now we've got the priests, the Salesians, who are the world-renowned in vocational training. So it is Don Bosco Technical Institute. So through that, we have the farms to show the farmers how they can do this in their communities. And they also buy seeds and seedlings from Don Bosco. So it's a beautiful way for Don Bosco to share the knowledge, or the Israelis, we share the knowledge. We set up curriculums with Don Bosco. And again, they're the premier educator in all of Africa. So we've already set up the curriculum and we just tweak it from country to country, but the curriculum is way up here in terms of agriculture. So we've got people who get their degree and they could teach. So we're kind of teaching them and teaching them to teach others. So it's a means of also getting ownership, because you have to have ownership. You know, it's not the Masungas, that's the Swahili word for the Western people, the non-local. When they think it's the Masungas and it's there, it's like, there's no sense of ownership. But when it's theirs, there's that pride, and it continues.
Yeah.
And that's our whole mission, is that we empower them, we teach them, so that they then teach each other. So the Salesians as educators, we teach the locals, and it's a means to teach the students, the next generation, as well as the locals with the farms that we have.
Nermine, we're gonna watch one of your videos now, and it's gonna go into detail. And I think video is just awesome. I watched it and it brought tears to my eyes. But it goes into detail, explains the projects, and we're gonna come back and got a few more questions for you. So let's run the video here, and then we'll be right back.
The first time I arrived to Africa, I was shocked. When my daughter kept asking to come to Africa, I said, no, I don't do third worlds. Being from Egypt, I know what poverty is. And I didn't want to see that. And thank God we have means. And I always said, let me give to other people. And I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. And it was the year I came to Tanzania, which is here now. And we came to Dodoma. And it happened to be in 2017. And I did not know it at the time. It was a drought. There was no water around. I saw women walk for hours and hours and hours getting water, and the water was as black as my skirt, and they were drinking it without filtering it. I just saw a vicious cycle of poverty. With no water, how can they eat? There's no food. It hurt my heart so much. Then that is the reason why I decided to start Water4Mercy, to provide a solution. I know a number of people like the saying, don't give a man a fish, teach them to fish. That is my philosophy. However, you cannot fish if you're hungry. You have to give them water first, give them food first. Then when they're feeling strong, they can think, and then you can teach them to fish. Our whole mission is to provide water, food, and hope. The Water4Mercy team is Innovation Africa for water, Cultivate for food, and with Cultivate and Don Bosco, we are providing education. We are now changing these cycles of poverty into bountiful cycles of success. It touches me when now I go and visit these villagers and I see how they've been able to be so resourceful, and it all starts with one drop of water. They were starting to plant seeds. They were making bricks. They were starting to be motivated. They had water. Now they can have their little gardens, and they're growing tomatoes, they're growing okra, and they're feeling good. And that is when I decided
to provide a permanent solution, not be on a subsistence level to just survive, but to thrive. That is hope. We are comprised of like-minded organizations that all have heart. We deal with the poorest of the poorest of the poorest. Innovation Africa provides the means to bring water. Step 2 is food, partnering with Cultivate. The third one, we are providing hope because we're not just growing vegetables and produce. Through Don Bosco Institute, we are growing professionals. We've got amazing, beautiful Israeli technology, and it's being disseminated through the most amazing Catholic school system in the entire world. Through the Don Bosco Network, we are going to be able to establish more AITeC, Agricultural Innovation Technology Centers throughout Africa, so that if we get the seed money, within 2-3 years, easy, Africa is going to be self-sustainable. We need partners to help us, we need donations, and we need foundations to take a look at our solution and realize that our solution is permanent.
Okay, I think that video gave a tremendous description of your ministry, of the project. You've talked about the solar powered wells, the agricultural high yield farming, and what about, don't, in some areas or all of them, they raise animals as well, or walk us through that again.
Yes, and that's beautiful. In Kenya with Don Bosco in Embu, which is 2.5 hours from Nairobi, we have animal husbandry, chickens, goats, cows. And I have to tell you, Brian, it blew me away when I brought the agronomists from Hebrew University and Cultivate there. The first thing they did is like, where are the fields that your cows are grazing? Okay, over here. What are they? The first thing they do, they go to what they're eating. They get down on the ground. I made the mistake of saying, "Ooh, you're touching the dirt." They're like, "It is not dirt. It is soil." Okay, I now know it is not dirt. It is soil. They touch the soil. They do soil analysis. They look at that. The first thing they said immediately, they're like, "Get rid of this. They're just eating grass. They're not eating nutritious grass. They're eating yuck." Okay, so if you've got your animals eating yuck and then you eat, or not, I mean yuck in a sense of non-nutritious. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not the technical person. Okay,
You're
but what
fine.
I've learned is that if you are what you eat, in a nutshell. Okay, and I'll tell you an example. My son graduated during COVID. And he loves to travel, and he had never come to Tanzania. And I said, "Nathan, you need to come and see our projects." He's a foodie just like me. He got his master's in business. I'm treating him. So we did 3 days of a safari, and then he saw our projects. Safari's great, da 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 da. Once we go to the remote areas before our projects, whatever, we had breakfast. He has an egg. He looks at the egg. "Mom, the yolk, it was just a little bit better than beige, not just a little beiger than the white." And he goes, "It's not yellow." And I go, "Nathan, of course not." And he goes, "What?" And I go, "Nathan, think about it. If there is malnutrition in the children, if there is childhood stunting, what do you think they're eating? They're eating what you're eating. What do you think they're eating? They're eating soil with grain that is not nutritious." So what I learned, like my eyes were open, Brian. Okay. I learned that truly you are what you eat. The first thing they did with animal husbandry is get rid of whatever they were currently eating and putting in nutrients into the soil. And I have pictures of how some of these nutrients, they almost look like sparkles of gold. I mean, I don't know the composition, but it's all, tested or whatever, but it adds nutrients. So not only for the yield, but for the nutrition.
Right.
And this is the beauty. And now you're talking about cows that instead of them milking and they're getting maybe 10 liters a day at the most, they're now getting 50 liters. And they're like, how? And it's like, they've got a science to it. You walk them this way, you do this, you do that. Like, it's a timer, like, you know, and there are protocols. And then you learn, you follow these protocols, and, you know, and again, and then now you've got cows that are yielding, they're eating well, they're yielding much more milk that's nutritious. So now the Don Bosco students that are learning, now their brains are eating healthier food. I mean, this to me is the key thing of us being mindful stewards of our water. Because when it hurts me, Brian, I like to say is when that bulb just doesn't burn bright. And if you understand, like when you see a baby, wow, they're looking, they're everywhere. They're like a sponge. They want to soak it up. They want to see. And then when you see the babies, you know, and here in the United States, the babies that are born with, you know, AIDS or, you know, or heroin addicted, and, you know, we've seen that in them where their brains are just not burning bright. Their bulbs are not burning bright. And this is what you get when you're not eating the rainbow. So when I saw something so simple as bringing in, you know, food for the food, you know, good stock for the food that they eat, the chickens, you know, and our projects, I'm proud to say, if you come to Dodoma, Brian, you have an egg. Let me tell you that yellow, it is yellow and bright, you know, and I go to the villages, we go to our villages that are 3.5, 4 hours away, our projects, and they are the yield that they have, you know, the nutrients. And I sit there and they love to invite us to eat, and they've got clean water, good food. And it's like, wow, that is dignity. That to me is the human dignity. We all have human dignity. God gave us all, but this is how God wants us to use our talents and treasures that he gave us so that we can give a hand up, not a hand out. And this is what I love about working with the technology, as you saw in the video, is we have a remote monitoring system. Every single one of our village projects is remotely monitored. I have a button. So if something stops working, we know about it. We know how much energy is being used, how much water is being used, and there are protocols. And I'm telling you, it is so important because it keeps them motivated because they have ownership, yet we're always watching to make sure that it continues.
Nermine, obviously this is a costly venture and you need help. And first, tell me what the one total village, what it might cost, and then I want to discuss that a little bit in detail.
Okay, yeah. And the cost for one village to be self-sustainable water and agriculture is $100,000. We start with water first. You have to start with water first. $65,000. And that is what I paid to the Israeli NGO, the non-governmental organization that have the boots on the ground. Should I say that they are my implementers? They implement our projects. You know, why reinvent the wheel? Okay, they do this. They've saved millions of lives. They are in over, I think, 11 countries throughout Africa. I'm working with them in Tanzania, and we're looking at projects now in Malawi and Uganda together, only because our donors say, I love that you're doing in Tanzania, but I want to help Malawi. Do you have projects in Malawi? And I go, I'm going to see whatever, because the beauty about our projects is that if something goes wrong and they don't fix it, we need to be there within 3 hours on the ground. Okay, so the operations on the ground are for our solar and water projects are with Innovation Africa, which is great. And then they're our implementing partner, and it's $65,000 for that. Okay, and it's all engineers, everything's remotely monitors. We engage the community, they all take ownership. And then when we see that they have been good stewards of their water, so after they've had water, after we see, and after about 3 to 4 months, okay, and they're motivated, then we'll see if they want agriculture, because again, they need it, it has to be theirs. Okay. And what's interesting, Brian, is that when we go back and visit, there are taps, throughout, and like, and all the villagers, like when we bring in the technology for water and solar, they all have a meeting that we help, of which the villagers, they make the decisions. Where should the taps go? Where should the trough go for the animals? Who's going to guard the tower at night? How much are we going to charge the villagers? They know how much they should charge. They take ownership. Okay. So they're the ones who take ownership. So what you see is that where these taps are, there's always a splash. Okay. And then what we see in the splash, they start growing stuff, and then they start growing, so when we see that there's a motivation there, and then typically when our staff goes back and visits, they'll appeal to them. Please, 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 can you say we want agriculture? We want agriculture. They're the ones that need to ask, because again, they need to be motivated. We want them, we give them the tools, but unless they decide and take ownership, it's not going to be successful. Okay. So once we bring in agriculture, that is an additional $35,000. And most of all of our villages are just about in the process of getting all agriculture. Thank God. Hallelujah. Anyways, so once they have agriculture, then we come in with the agronomists, depending on the need of the community. Sometimes we'll do drip irrigation, which, if you don't know what that is, it's like a tiny hole strategically placed at the root, and it's fertigation. We put nutrients in that tiny drop so that it's optimal, so that it yields nutritious as well as yields. So sometimes we'll put in drip irrigation. We'll also work. A lot of these people have not even been registered. So to get a bank account, they want microloans. So we assist them with going to the banks and registering them to them microloans so that they can get little microloans that we assist them. I'm telling you, the stuff that I've learned that I didn't know I needed to learn. Wow. All I could say is thank God that he equipped me with these world experts, because they do this work. When I go back, they all praise me, and I just say it's Mungu, it's God. God gave me the means and the heart to realize that there is a solution. There is a solution to combat hunger and thirst. And it's $100,000 per village. And there's a way to share it through the Catholic Church so that it's sustainable and so forth. So that was a long answer to your question. Sorry.
What's the average village size?
We have some villages that were less, at about 1,500, and then about 5,000. And I'll tell you, Muini, my very first village that I told you, when I first adopted them or whatever, they were about 1,400 villagers. They are now over 5,000. Okay. So when we go into a village, our numbers grow, especially depending on what's happening in the areas nearby. Because what happens is that all of a sudden this village has water, and then these other villages want it. And depending on their situation, depending on the circumstances, again, I don't make those decisions. They're the experts that could tell me, because there's very specific criteria about being a vetted. We have gone to villages where the monakiti, who is the village chief, basically says, oh, I love it. And I feel bad because I still pray for those villagers, because the village chief is like, if you're going to do this, I want money out of it. Or no, we're not going to work. You're going to work. We're not going to implement it. I'm like, no, you have to, so depending on it, I hate to say it, we make sure that people are there for the right reasons to really drink good water. So nearby people come by. Once there's water, there's a means for setting up businesses. So more people come. So our village sizes have now come closer to about 5,000. And now our villages that we're looking at now that we're vetting, I'm going to be there in a month with the people from Clearwater Central Catholic High School. And there's a number of villages that we're looking at that are about 3,000 people or more, that we are looking at 5 villages for Water4Mercy to adopt for next year.
Would that be a typical, when you're looking at villages, 3,000 to say 4,000, around in that number?
Yes,
Now,
yes, or
when,
25 to 30, like in that range, and
okay.
then it will grow, or it might grow after water.
And at what point do animals, when do they get involved? You bring in animals or raise animals?
We don't bring in animals, they have the animals.
They've
So
got
they
the,
always have the animals. So when we decide, or should I say, when the villagers decide where the taps go, then we'll also say, well, you need to have a means of a trough. And it's interesting how they train the animals to drink water out of the trough. We watched it actually with Dr. John Ventrella at Clearwater Central Catholic. They were with us when we had just turned on the water at a village, and we were training, or the staff was training to get the animals to drink water out of the trough. It was the coolest thing. I have videos of it. Very interesting.
that's
Very
cute.
interesting. Yeah, but they already have the animals. Yeah.
So the Salesians, do they come in and set up a school, or are they
No, they
already
already
there?
have the schools. That's what I said.
Okay,
They
okay.
already have these schools. They're called they're vocational training schools, where again, they are teaching the poorest of the poorest of the poorest, which a number of them are from our villages, believe it or not. So they teach them a trade. And as you know, Don Bosco, he had an appeal for the youth, and the youth that couldn't stay in school. Okay. And he knew that they needed dignity, and they needed to earn money and not beg. So the first thing that Don Bosco did as a priest is he taught the boys how to run a printing press so that they could work and they could make money. So the Don Bosco Institutes are sustainable. The Don Boscos that we're at, okay, have tailoring, okay, they have mechanics, they have plumbing, they have masonry, they have these different trades. So they're already world renowned. They're all over the world. In Africa, they are the premier. I mean, they're all the premier all over the world. And they are run by the Catholic Salesians, but the people there, like a number of my students have like the hijabs, again, it doesn't matter. They provide a high quality education, a trade. Okay. So when God touched my heart to say, wow, this needs to continue through good education, I knew the good that the Salesians were doing with their trade, with their technical institute, these vocational training centers. And each vocational training center, they place them in jobs, so the whole thing, like it's skills to teach these youth skills for a working nation, give them dignity to work. Okay. So when I saw this, through God, I knew the Salesians there. I saw the good that they were doing. I had visited their schools, their TVETs, and even had adorable outfits made, and again, they are sustainable. So when they make that table in their carpentry, they sell that table, but they'll sell that table for $15. So it's a win-win-win, whereas you could go buy it for, let's say, 50. Do you know what I mean? So again, it's like a trade school on steroids, as I like to say. So when I knew, or when God put in my heart, Nermine, this needs to continue through education. We need to teach, and we don't need to continue to do it. We need them to teach each other. So I approached Don Bosco, the Salesians, and in a nutshell, a marriage was made. And then that's when we developed the Agricultural Innovation and Technology Center. So at the Don Bosco schools, they have land, and that's where we set up the farms. And in Tanzania and Dodoma at the Don Bosco school, we have the farm, and we have classrooms there for the agricultural students. Okay. And then in Embu, Kenya, we also have there the animal husbandry, and it's another curriculum that they offer to their students. Do you understand? So a student now can say, I want to learn mechanics. No, I want to learn agriculture. And when they learn agriculture, they get a degree, they get this, and they get an opportunity for them to get placed in jobs, and also have their own entrepreneurial
Right. Now, again, Nermine, can people donate through your website at Water4
Mercy.
Mercy.
Water4Mercy.org, yes,
Okay.
or a check. And on the website, there's also our address here in Clearwater that they could write a check. And we also, if anyone's Canadian, we now have a registration on our website that people could also get Canadian. And we wanted to share the story so that we want to touch hearts. Because as I said, it all started with heart. God touched my heart. And I want to touch other hearts. And that's what inspired us to write the book, The Most Wonderful Rain.
Before we get into that book, I do want to mention to those viewing or listening to this as a podcast that, you may say, oh my gosh, I can never give 100,000, but you certainly could give 250, 500, small, whatever you can do. Go to water4mercy.org and help Nermine and her efforts here to help the poorest of the poor. The book you mentioned.
And wait, before you go on to the book, Brian, thank you for saying that, because I want to say every donation, everyone, I pray for them. I really pray for everyone. I have someone who writes me a check for $3 a month. I pray for that person with a big note, please, and I'm like, wow, it's kind of like the widow who gives you that little coin. Right. Wow. Like to me, and just like each drop of water, like every coin, every dollar, every cent, it adds up, and truly, like to me, the big and the small, and this is, I want to touch hearts to help however they can. So right. Thank you for the plug.
The Most Wonderful Rain you wrote here, it's about a girl named Deborah, and just give us a quick synopsis of Deborah, because we're going to watch a video.
Yes, and actually Deborah is in Hoosie Village, and Hoosie Village is a project that Bishop Gregory Parks, I appealed and touched his heart, and I said, can you help? So he said, Nermine, I'll do a challenge. I'll put up 25, and if you get a challenge, we'll do the other 25, and then later on, we brought in agriculture. Thank God. Thank you, Bishop Parks. Thank you, so forth. So with that, Deborah is an orphan, and unfortunately she couldn't go to school. Her dream was to be a doctor, and she couldn't because she had to go get water for her grandmother. So when we went, we brought in our Innovation Africa and brought in water, and in a nutshell, her life has been transformed. She is now in school. We went to visit her last summer. Actually, Father Tom, Anastasia, I showed you the picture of us. We visited Deborah and gave her the book. And actually, we even have a video on her, not just the one that you're showing, but on her promoting our book as how she's now become a little star, a star. But her life has been transformed, and something so basic as water. And that's what I wanted to write this book, because in 2024, we're now in 2024, like, when we were there, you're like, in this day and age, that this condition still exists. People think, and even me, I'm telling you, Brian, even me, God touched my heart and my eyes were open, and it's always been there, but he opened my eyes and touched my heart to do something. And I thought, and this book, we've been blessed with an amazing children's author. I co-authored it with an amazing children's author. So together we spent a week at Mother Angelica Shrine there, prayed at adoration all day. And then at night we would write the story, and then Zoom with the staff in Tanzania, just to make sure everything was correct and proper. And then I'm proud to say the illustrations, wow, the illustrations are amazing. We rescued about 9 Kenyan boys off the slums of Nairobi because we wanted to find a local artist. So I appealed to the priest. I'm like, look, you guys know these talented kids, help me find an artist. They put me in touch with this group that rescues boys off the slums of Nairobi. I met them when I was there and took them out to lunch. They didn't even know what to do. They didn't even know how to order food. It touched my heart. And I'm sad to say one of the boys was killed. The gangs found him. So we were going to have a number of the different boys do the illustrations for all the pages until we found Abdullahi, and we ended up using all of his illustrations because he nailed it. And he is a Kenyan boy. Abdullahi is amazing. So the stories are a way to captivate children. So it's a children's book, could be read to children. I do readings to churches, temples, youth groups, and I'll do readings, but adults can also mean it as a way to touch hearts as to how you can help.
Can they get the book off your website? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, people, please go to that. Get the book. It's beautiful. Well done. Well, let's watch the video here. And you know, the video is 1,000 words says it all, but it's beautiful. So let's watch the video and then we'll come back and wrap up the show.
My name is Deborah. I am 17 years old. I live with my grandmother in a small village in Tanzania. The hardest part of our lives is to find water. Since I was a young girl, I used dirt water. It made me sick with diarrhea and cholera. But it is all I had. I am an orphan from a young age and left from my grandmother to care for me. Today, I take care of her. It is my responsibility to wake up early and work to find water. Sometimes I miss school because I need to find water. It makes me sad. One day, new people came to village. They said they want to help and bring us clean water. I did not believe this could be true. But the next day they came with the big machine and started drilling into the ground. It made a lot of noise, but the water came from the ground. We got so happy, we danced and sang. Every day I saw them work, building a tall tower in my village. The day came, we turned on the water. Since this day, our lives have changed. Today, I have a tap outside my home, and I even have a tap at my school. I drink clean water every day, and I also use it to wash my school uniform and help my grandmother at home. I don't get sick anymore, and I never miss a class because water is near. I am now one of the top students in my class. When I grow up, I will become a doctor. It is my dream. I know it will come true because Vocational Africa showed me that dreams do come true.
Again, Nermine, you've done an incredible job with all you're doing. What's your next project?
Well, right now I'm proud to say, you know, our AITeCs, our agricultural centers, are a means of helping communities become self-sustainable. In Kenya, I'm working with the Sisters of Carmelite. They're cloistered, and I met them a few years ago, truly a God thing, and they touched my heart because they, you know, they're cloistered. They have this land. They don't know how to be sustainable. And when we brought our agronomists and we saw what they were doing, we realized they really needed help. So I jumped in, I appealed to some hearts so that we could put in an AITeC. They're an agricultural project there for $35,000, which we are I only got $15,000 of the money, so I'm still hoping to raise funds for that in Kenya. And as I said, we're gonna be going in Tanzania with the Clearwater Central Catholic High School students who adopted Mabalangu village. So we also have, we're now, they've been great stewards of their water. So we're now going to be implementing with the students agriculture. So they're going to be there and see what we do. And it's a means to do that. And there's about 5 villages that Water4Mercy is looking to adopt and sponsor for 2025. A few of those, some donors have spoken for, but a few we're going to use as an appeal. So we're hoping people will come and see with us in 2025 on a cool trip we're going to try to do in July.
Awesome. Nermine, any closing thoughts you want to share with our viewers or listeners before we wrap up today's show?
Yeah. What can I say? God touched my heart, and I'm so happy to have this opportunity to speak with you, Brian, and to share with your listeners that, I want to touch hearts, and we do need funds, but we also need support, your prayers, however, and again, God's got it. I've got that faith that this is what we've done. We have saved over 67,000 lives since being founded 5 years ago. And people say, look at what you've done. Like you've said that. And I say, no, this is God through me. So I am blessed to be part of this. And I invite all of you to join me so that you could be part of this holy mission. And wow, the satisfaction that you get. I cannot express how truly the joy in my heart and the fulfillment that God has put in me by helping others. And it's indescribable. And, and unless you really do it with your heart, that's why I'm inviting your listeners, whether to support me with $1 or whatever, or with your heart, jump in. God wants you to help however you can and use your talents and your treasures, however God is asking you to use them. So.
Well, Nermine, it's been a pleasure to see you again, to have you on the show again, and I look forward to seeing you soon. People, I hope you enjoyed the show. Please go to water4mercy.org. Help Nermine as she tries to help the poorest of poor. Please subscribe to the show, share it with friends, and we will see you next time on Mercy Unbound. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel for the video portion. The podcast can be heard at anchor.fm/Dr. Brian, Bryan Thatcher, Thatcher, and on all the major podcast forums. I would love to speak at your church or conference, and please consider supporting our efforts to spread the truth to a hurting world. Thank you again, and for more information, go to the website at drbrianthatcher.com.